First of all, I really want to thank Craig and Ozfish for allowing me to be on the agenda today. And obviously thanks to the amazing speakers so far. It's exactly what I'd hoped we'd be able to produce with tonight. They've stolen most of my good content, so I'm pretty happy about that too. But of course, thanks to you guys. I mean, you guys showing your interest for native fish is incredibly inspiring and really important, and I really want to thank you for that. But let's get some stuff out in the open. You don't like me. There's a couple of reasons why I think this might be the case. We'll go through them, but you don't like me. For starters, I do have the same name as this guy. Some of you may like the movie, some may not. This is me. This is the only fish I've ever caught with a hook and a line. So clearly I'm not a fisherman. So it's getting there, isn't it? I can feel the resentment building in the room. Oh yeah. And finally, yes, I work for the MDBA. I'm a federal employee. I work in a water bureaucracy. So what I'm hoping tonight though, and what I want to share with you guys, is why fish are important to me, why fish are important to the MDBA, and hopefully why you will see there are some benefits in the stuff that we have to do and the things we have to implement. So why fish are so important to me? For starters, I am a scientist, and they are just bloody interesting. We've already touched on this already. 46 freshwater species, around 19 or 20 once you count the estuary and the fish that come in and out of the estuary. And every species has got a real unique characteristic to it. So golden perch, these guys, we've talked about how far they move. They move vast distances, lay their eggs on flows, let the flows move them down. So people call them a flow specialist, but then we've also seen evidence that they'll recruit in still refuge pools when they have to. An incredibly adaptive fish. And that's just one of them. Murray cod, you guys know them probably better than me, but obviously they love a snag. More stable flows. Some of them might move, some of them might go for a shag, go and recruit somewhere. These guys are called Murray hardy heads. They can inhabit saline wetlands. So we've kind of forced them into these habitats which are probably not their ideal or preferred habitat, but they can deal with it and other species can't. And this guy, you've probably seen him associated with a dude with a big beard. This guy's a stocky Galaxius, has an enormous range of 3 kilometres within the basin. 3 kilometres of stream is the only place that you will find this species, way up in the snowy mountains. And a gentleman called Mark Lindemans has been rescuing a few of these out of the fires. So I could go on and on. As I said, there's 60 odd species, but all of them tell me that we have a lot of work to do. They're all incredibly interesting, and they can tell me if we're doing a good job or not. And to be honest, let's be frank, things are pretty shit. If health of native fish in the basin was the only indicator of successful water reform, I think it'd be fair to say that we failed. As governments, we failed. Federal, state, all levels. Carp continue to dominate our systems. Yarra pygmy perch down in the lower lakes, we can't find it. Have we lost the first species out of the basin? And we haven't even started to see the effects of climate change. So things are not great. But what can we do about it? So Matt, Martin, everyone here has already started to talk about what we can do. There's a bunch of answers to the problems which I will rattle through now because everyone stole my good stuff. Re-snagging, fantastic community participation about restoring habitat, fishways, and environmental flows. We can all make things happen, and these things all contribute to improving things for native fish. But these things are not, as Martin has described, you can't just do these things alone. So habitat action without water flow, you need both. Water reform without actual on-ground habitat works. It's not going to work. We need all these things together. So whether you believe it or not, reforming how we manage water and changing the way water is managed and shared across the basin can actually be a rec fish's best friend, because we can actually improve a hell of a lot of things for all those various species through various parts of the water reform. So for example, we want connectivity between systems. We want that connectivity so a golden perch can do its thing on a flow pulse, maybe in one of the tributaries of the Darling, and that flow continues through into the Darling down to nursery areas like the Menindee Lakes. So there's parts of basin plan and water reform that tries to address that. And this horrendogram of complexity, which basically tells us every type of fish has every type of water need that you could possibly think of, these things, we can't do all this stuff with just we can't just do this stuff with an environmental flow. We need to manage water better across all types of water, not just environmental flow. But we also want water to reach wetlands so that the small fish can continue to survive, and if any fish get in there that use it as a nursery area, they can survive and recruit. And we still need flows to the sea. We still need freshwater flows to encourage mulloway into the estuary to reproduce. So we need all of these things to make sure all native fish can actually thrive. So we know that flows aren't the only answer. So Murray-Darling Basin Authority has always been dealing with flows and water. Now we're trying to reinvigorate the native fish strategy. We had to call it something different, so we threw an extra word in there, the native fish recovery strategy. We're trying to get a 30-year plan in place in 10-year sort of slots where we chase the things that we want. The things we want: recovery and persistence of native fish, threats to native fish being mitigated, communities being actively involved in recovering native fish and using the best available knowledge that we have. And so we want to implement actions in place in things, building on stuff from the native fish strategy where we had demonstration reaches. We want to actually generate things called recovery reaches, where we actually do the things that we demonstrated work at a bigger scale. We want to support local people on ground being the real focus of the recovery effort. We want those people to be part of the community and to build the partnerships that Cam has talked about and others have talked about. We want rec fishers like you guys. We want First Nations people. We want community members all working together and getting involved and learning from each other about what we can do for native fish recovery. And we want to move forward with things that we know work. Pump screening, all this sort of fishways, all the stuff that we've talked about already today. So at the moment, the native fish recovery strategy is a document. It's going to be coming out in a couple of weeks. It needs serious funding if we're going to do everything that we want it to do. But we can't just sit there and go, oh, we want to do a couple of things. We've got to dream big, we've got to think big. So it's thinking big, but it needs some funding. Now I'm going to switch gears a bit because I'm taking the opportunity to do a little bit of myth busting. Hopefully, anyway, we'll see. Despite this picture, please don't think of us at the Murray-Darling Basin Authority as boring bureaucrats. It's not a ringing endorsement, I know. We've got a lot of hard-working people in the agency. We got our CEO out relocating fish the other week. We are hardworking, we are trying to make change in the basin. But we're also in a position where a lot of the stuff that we intended from the basin plan and the water reform kind of got diluted to get the basin plan across the line. So we're slightly compromised in what we can do, and politics has sort of led that, and we've got, we're in a position where we're probably a bit compromised. And so we need people who care about healthy rivers and who care about native fish to speak up so that we can have our voice heard as well. And so we know that the rec fishing community can be a huge voice and can be a real driver of change, but it doesn't have to be a huge protest. You guys are doing the stuff on ground already. It's amazing the stuff that people are doing on ground. It's fantastic. And we want more people to be getting involved in this type of stuff. We want the native fish strategy, when it comes out, we want everyone to be getting into reading it, telling us what you want, telling us what's missing, all that type of stuff. But we also want you guys to think about how you can leverage your interest and your passion and add your voice to, you know, the political sphere, I suppose, and making sure people understand that you guys want native fish back, you guys want healthy waterways, and that you want healthy rivers, and you want the governments to fund recovery actions that can help restore some of this stuff. So to wrap up, you know who I am now. You won't forget that name, will you? I'm not trying to be a faceless bureaucrat. I'm trying to be someone who takes their responsibilities seriously. Okay, I'm not a fisherman. I'm sorry about that. But I do love fish. I think fish are incredibly interesting. I know what they mean to Australians. They're not just something that you guys catch. It's a totem for First Nations people. It's a protein source for desperate communities. It's an important pastime. It's a way of connecting with nature. It's a fantastic way of relaxing and de-stressing. And it's an indicator of river health. So we can, as the MDBA, deliver some of these elements through water reform, through the native fish recovery strategy, through better decisions when we do river operations in the Southern Basin. And there's a bunch of passionate people wanting to do good for the basin, but we do need your support, so please get involved. Thank you very much.